Sick. All right, we're rolling. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I appreciate having you on again. And yeah, apologies for, I think it was yesterday we were supposed to do it. For the first time in a long ass time, I just woke up at like 6 p.m. for some reason.
And then, yeah, no worries, man. I mean, thanks for having me on again. Anytime, for real.
So you were telling me you just got back from China?
Yeah, I did. So this is the start of my tour, which is my first solo headlining tour, which is like huge for me. And the first three shows on this tour were Nagoya and Tokyo, Japan, and then this huge festival in Wuhan, China. And I was basically over there for, I think about 10 days total. I left on the 28th and then got back on the 7th. And it was amazing. But now, like, I'm back home and I'm still kind of adjusting from jet lag and the time zone shift, and it's been really weird because that was my first time in Asia or like that far, like rotated around the earth. And so I'm finding that I developed a biphasic sleep schedule just naturally. So I've been waking up at like 1 a.m. and then going back to sleep after several hours and then waking up at like around 1 p.m. And that's been happening for the past few days since being back, and it's kind of disorienting. So I'm gonna try to just stay up. Probably tonight. I'm just probably gonna stay up for 24 hours until the next time. It's like find like the appropriate time that I want to go to sleep, and then actually try to fall asleep then, and just see if that works. But I've been trying like melatonin and stuff, and it's not cutting it. So yeah, that's what's been going on for me. Oh, your mic cut out again.
Is that better?
There we go.
All right, cool. My bad. I guess this cable is sketchy or something. Yeah, anytime I've ever tried to reset my sleep schedule by staying up the extra day to make sure that I'm like tired at the right time the next night or whatever, I ended up just sleeping for 24 hours to like recoup the 24 hours that I stayed awake for. And then I'm like back in the exact same position, but I just feel like shit.
Damn, I'm kind of afraid of that happening, but I feel like it's worth a shot. You know, I might have to sacrifice some sleep just to get back on a normal schedule. But yeah, it's been weird.
One thing a therapist told me once when I was talking to them about sleep shit and like how I can't control when I go to sleep, kind of like I don't really choose like if I get tired, and if I try to go to sleep when I'm not tired, I just end up laying there and stuff. And they're like, all right, well, you can't choose when you go to sleep or when you get tired, but you can choose when you wake up. So maybe just like bite the bullet one day, and even if you go to sleep at 6 a.m., just force yourself to wake up at 9 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
It does, but also fuck that.
I know. I mean, I'm going to have to do that shit anyway because I'm about to play more shows next week.
Oh, where at?
It's ridiculous. I'm going to be playing the show in Kansas City on the 18th, and then Minneapolis on the 22nd, and then Honolulu on the 25th. So like,
oh, cool. I've never actually
played
in Hawaii before.
And then like really far. Yeah, this is going to be my, I think, this is going to be my second time playing. Last time I think was 2014 or 2015, like a long time ago.
How was it last time?
I'm excited. From what I can remember, it was interesting. It wasn't a big crowd. They were pretty small events, but like the fandom was hardcore. I remember there was probably like a dozen people at one of because I played two shows, one day and then the next day, and then the first day I was like so sleep deprived anyway because of the traveling, and I think there were only like 12 people or so there, but like they were like right on the rail just going so hard, and it was kind of cool. Like when people are like really about what I do, it doesn't really matter the if there's not a lot, because I feel like I can engage with them, particularly like after the set, and like really, feed off of their enthusiasm, and it's like it feels good. It doesn't feel like I am undesired. I mean, ultimately, it's like I'm getting paid doing a job anyway, even if I'm playing to no one. But it feels good when, you know, people really appreciate it, and it's not just like a bombardment of like people.
Yeah, I definitely prefer shows. I mean, it doesn't really matter how many people there are. If there's a vibe, there's a vibe. You know, I've played shows before to like 50 people or less where it's just like a fucking vibe and it's sick. And then I've played shows to like thousands of people where it's just not a vibe and it's just not that sick.
Dude, it's not about quantity.
No, it's about the energy in the room, and that comes from all sorts of shit. It comes from like even like the room's layout and like the type of sound system and like the just like ethereal sort of vague energy surrounding the event and shit like that.
Dude, it's interesting. That's something I've been recently thinking about, like the actual structure of the room itself, like how the sound system is and how the sound like reflects and transmits through the room really affects the, like, I kind of think of a crowd as like a crowd of people. It's like, if there's enough people, it's easier to reach like this critical mass of energy where it's like everyone starts to react in a very similar way. But if the room doesn't sound right, like for instance, I find that like venues that are really reflective, like the
Hampton Coliseum.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's in the Hampton. It's like down near Florida or something. But that one, I played there once with Ganja, and it sounded so fucking bad. It's like just it's impossible to make a room like that sound good. It's just a giant, like, I think usually it's like maybe a stadium for sports events or something, but like the First Bank Center is a good example as well. It's when they get the First Bank Center doesn't sound that bad, but Hampton Coliseum, at least from where I was standing, it mostly sounded like reverb. Like I couldn't actually even like make out a lot of the details of the songs and stuff.
That's the thing. I was thinking like the Hollywood Palladium. I don't know if you ever played that, but it's not like a stadium, but it's pretty huge and round, like, and it's very reflective. And I find that certain kinds of music where a lot of the liveliness and like juice of the music is in the detail, when that gets blurred over, you're really just left with like it doesn't hit for most people in the audience. And I think the vibe of that it kind of just dissipates the vibe, and it's hard for people to really cohere into like one flow.
Especially if your music is like kind of details based, and if it's missing all of the detail, it kind of defeats like half of the point of all the time that you spent on it and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever played? Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, so something I've been doing to kind of like get a sense of if a song is going to translate is I'll just put reverb on the master and see is there an overall like general form that's still strong even when it's blurred.
Or you use just any reverb, or you use like a convolution one with a space or something?
Ideally, I'll find like what I want to do is I feel like it should be standardized for like venues to have impulse responses of their rooms so that they can send to.
But are you really going to take like your 30-date tour and mix it for every single venue?
No, but I'll test out to see what songs definitely don't translate well. And then maybe inform my decision making around that. I feel like it would just be a peace of mind thing, but I've just been using like hybrid reverb on algorithm mode.
True.
Just to kind of simulate that.
Have you ever played Flash in DC?
No, I don't think so.
That's the best sounding venue, I reckon, in America. They have a function one in there. It's tiny. It's like a 200 cap room. And on all of the walls, they've covered it with jeans, like thick, like
really?
Denim. Yeah, it's like a couple of inches thick of denim on every single surface. And apparently denim is like really good for treatment. But it basically sounds dead in there. It's like the closest club I think that I've heard to just like a studio monitoring type environment.
See, that sounds awesome. I bet everything translates well there.
Yeah, I love playing it, even though it's like not big or anything. It's that's a room that's got a good vibe. Like the layout of the room is good. When there's people in there, it feels like tight and gets all sweaty and shit, and
Nice.
just sounds super nice in there. I
Yeah,
played
I'm
a
looking at it
show
now.
in
Looks great.
I played a show in Vegas like a week or two ago, and the speakers were on the roof, which was weird. Like they were hanging from the roof, like all of the speakers. There was like two, like just a line of speakers on the roof.
Were they like angled downwards, or
Yeah,
how
yeah.
are they configured?
Yeah, they were like hanging from the roof where the drivers were like pointing towards the floor. But I imagine they were probably like angled in some way. But yeah, it was weird. I didn't think it was ideal at all.
Yeah, that seems more like an aesthetic choice than a the sonic.
Well, I think this place is usually like an art gallery, so they probably like normally play, environmental sounds out of those speakers on the roof or something like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you smoke weed?
On and off.
Do you smoke weed
Yeah.
in China? Apparently it's like crazy illegal there.
Dude, drugs are so illegal in both China and Japan. No, I was completely sober in both, which was kind of nice
Smart.
to just like not have to worry about that. Although I was offered like a shot of vodka, like just from the bottle right as I was done my set in China, which I took. I was like, fuck it, like celebrate. Finally, I'm done this super
It's
anticipatory,
so-
stressful thing. And it was
It's-
nice.
It's so bizarre that weed is illegal, but alcohol is legal. Like, I never ever see a person on weed like losing their shit, just blacked out, trying to fight people, or like
Oh, yeah.
going like, "Oh, I can definitely drive my car at 60, like 100 miles an hour on the fucking freeway." And like, alcohol is such a like. I've been addicted to a lot of shit, and I've done like fucking like every substance, and I still think that alcohol is one of the most potent, grotty substances that you can do.
Damn.
And it's
mean,
like wild that that's the legal one. Like there's
Yeah.
so many other substances that like keep you way more black. Like it's even if the government's like idea of legalizing it was to try and like keep the population like placid or something like that. So
yeah.
it's like the worst way of doing it.
Right, to keep people slow. I mean, because it kills the most people out of any substance, I think.
Yeah, that or maybe cigarettes, I guess.
Yeah.
I wonder though, like if ketamine was legal, if that would just start killing way more people. It probably would. Like people would probably just start driving on it, and there'd be like pile-ups on every highway. Like I don't think driving on that is safe either. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely feel like alcohol is like the most potent one, and the one that like has some of the craziest adverse side effects.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about alcohol, like versus ketamine, is alcohol is like for a lot of people, it's very activating. Like it's, even though it's like it's like a depressant, it makes people like move and do things that otherwise maybe they wouldn't. Like it's
lowers your
it's enabling.
inhibitions.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like every person reacts differently to every substance, but I think if like I wouldn't imagine ketamine being like that comparable to alcohol in the sense of like people are going to be like motivated to go out and like do stuff and fight people. Maybe PCP.
But I think if people did ketamine at the level that people do alcohol, it would ruin society way more for sure, actually. Because I feel like nothing would ever get done. Like everyone would just be high all the time, sitting at home,
probably.
watching YouTube videos and not showering for weeks at a time.
Damn, I'm not too familiar with ketamine. I've done it occasionally, but I have seen like here where I live. It seems to be pretty prevalent in the music scene. And
In Denver, you're in Denver still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge in Denver, definitely.
Yeah.
Wait, so the tour that you're doing right now is for a new album, right?
Yeah, technically it is, because it just coincides, and I'm playing some new tunes off the album.
Is the album out yet, or is it?
Yeah, so it came out October 13th. It's called
Is it
Bridges
this
Between.
Bridges Between one? Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I haven't listened to it yet. Actually, I've heard a couple of these. I'll need to take a proper listen at some point. I'm curious, when you're mixing, and I assume you master your own stuff for digital distribution, do you true peak limit your stuff, or do you just clip it?
I don't do true peak limiting. No, I don't do it because I find that at least what I'm using Pro L2, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like I'm getting significantly less gain, like loudness, basically, if I'm using true peak limiting. Sometimes it makes the transient sound softer, even if I have like the look ahead at 0. I just don't really like it, and I've not really found any evidence of it being necessary.
Yeah, I've been mixing my album at the moment, and I've been like tossing up on whether or not to use true peak limiting, because I had everything clipped at first. Like, I've fucking mastered this album now like 6 times. I'm so sick of it. And I'm doing it again because I threw them all into RX and used the waveform stats module to look at it. And I was like, wow, there's like 2,000 peaks that go over like 4 dB. And the actual peak of it, if you put it in Ableton, was -1. But they become apparent when you put them in Ableton and then turn warping on, or obviously like when they go to Spotify, all of your stuff has to get converted to MP3, and the quality of that converter is unknown. So it's possibly questionable quality. I assume they probably use a good quality one. It's fucking Spotify, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I was chatting with Culprit about it, and he suggested doing it. So I was just clipping and then having it be clipped at -1 dB to take into account the true peaks. But now I'm considering doing true peak limiting. Do you just clip to 0 then, or do you clip to -1?
Yeah, I clip to 0. Yeah.
And it's never been a problem, you don't think?
I don't think so. I'm kind of at the point where like if I'm not perceiving it being a problem, then I'm not going to worry about it being a problem.
Yeah, I feel that actually.
That's kind of where I'm at. I do like to hear other people's takes on it. Like, if there is an example where it's like, oh, that's apparent that it is better doing it this way in this certain case, or like in this setting, like through this sound system or something, then it might reevaluate like how I'm considering. I'll reconsider.
Right.
But like I kind of just don't like doing things for the sake of like.
Just because it's how you're supposed to do it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe I should just like not worry about it. I don't know why I'm worrying about it. Like, I can't really hear the difference. And actually with true peak limiting, you're right. It does like sound kind of like less heavy, like in the transients slap less hard. But if I do a true peak limit master and then clipped master, and then I do a phase difference, all that you get out of that phase difference is distortion. Like, so part of it is like, I think like our tolerances as a society for distortion has just been raised so much over the last like 10 years.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, stuff that gets produced now that you would consider clean, if you listen to that in like 2010, you'd be like, wow, that's so distorted. But I think it's slowly become normalized. So I think perhaps these days that kind of stuff matters less than ever.
Yeah.
So maybe I won't do it, I don't know.
I think so. I've been thinking about that too. I think what's happening is, we're slowly increasing loudness more and more and clipping shit more and more. I think that's also changing how, particularly in electronic music, bass music, how producers are sound designing and using sounds. Like, you can have, all of your sounds are basically like square wave based sounds, you can clip the shit out of it and it'll still pretty much sound like the same. If it's like, if all of the waveforms are very like clipped anyway, then you can push it really hard and it won't really like lose its tonal characteristics. And if you write a song where you are using those sounds like from the start, then you're going to have a song that lends itself to that kind of sound design and that kind of clipping.
It's almost like true peak limiting won't fix it at that point anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like it doesn't matter. I mean, if your whole song is square waves, I'm just using this as an example, then, and if you make it sound good, like chiptune music, for instance, if it's all like square waves and basic shapes that are already like very hard edged, then it doesn't matter how loud it is or how loud you squash it. Really, it's still going to sound interesting and good because you're composing it with that kind of sound design. And I think that's something that's been like in bass music lately. I mean, when I say lately, over the past like several years, there's a lot more sounds that are clipped, and that's what is sought. That's the kind of sound that's sought after. It's not necessarily just an artifact of trying to make something loud. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not.
Yeah, you're saying like that kind of clipped sound is almost like a stylistic trait that people kind of want these days.
Yeah, and I think because of that, our ears, as like collectively, are used to. We're more accepting of clipped and distorted type of sounds, because distortion. I mean, you can have like really short, punchy drums that are really distorted, but like really controlled sounding, and that's going to sound way better than having like some kind of like really warm, evolving pad that is randomly clipping, like obviously distorted in different places. Like those are two situations where they're both being distorted, but
one sounds like it's on purpose and the other one sounds like it's a mistake.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is your process for mixing and mastering just you do it kind of all in the session that you're writing from and just aim for specific targets for LUFS and the amount of sub level and the amount of brightness and stuff? Or when you get to the end of an album like the one you just finished, do you kind of like stem everything out and move it all to a new session or something like that?
So a little bit of both. This last album, how I went about it was I basically mixed everything in the session that I composed it, and then I kind of master it. I gently will like do like I'll do like a tonal balance EQ and then a little bit of like multiband compression to kind of just like make sure that the lows are controlled and shit isn't like too harsh. And then I'll render that without a limiter. And then I'll bring, what I did was, I basically did that for every song, rendered like, I call them unmaximized masters. And then I'll bring them into, like all of them into a new session, line them up to make sure that there's enough, to have the appropriate amount of silence in between each song. And then that's the session where I do the final like loudness matching and any kind of like EQ or like D harshness shit that I would do. I basically use, like for that, I'm using Ozone, a little bit of Soothe, and tonal balance control, which is really nice, just to make sure, just to visually see that everything is like on a target slope, which is basically just pink noise.
Right. Have you messed with, well, you can load your own targets into it too, I think. Mm-hmm. Like you can load a track in and then see how close you are to that track or whatever. Have you messed with Ozone 11 yet?
There's an Ozone 11 already?
Yeah, it's sick. There's a few modules in there that are really cool. There's one called Clarity, which is kind of like the opposite of Soothe. It takes like a bunch of bins and boosts and cuts them. It's basically like Soothe, but it works in both directions instead of just one direction. So Soothe, you put it on and it just tames resonances. But this Clarity one, you put it on and it tames resonances and puts boosts in other spots to kind of flatten it out more. And it actually sounds pretty good. I've been using it a lot on my latest masters.
That sounds awesome because it's like introducing dynamics in a favorable way, or introducing like, I mean, I haven't tried it, but I'm assuming I have an idea of what that's like. Is it anything like Gullfoss? Because Gullfoss kind of does.
Yeah, it is
too.
like Gullfoss, but I think it's so whenever I've used Gullfoss in the past, I can't really hear what it's doing. Like I can turn this shit to like max amounts, and I'm like, it doesn't sound that much different to me.
Yeah.
But with this one, I put it on like 30%, and I can hear a pretty substantial difference.
Sick. I gotta try this.
Yeah, there's another module that they put in there as well called Stabilizer, which is kind of the same thing, I think, but it's like more broadband instead of more like spectral bins.
That's in Ozone 10, I think.
Oh, okay. I never used it in 10. I only just started using it in 11. But yeah, so it's, I guess Clarity is kind of like that, but with finer bands.
Do you find that it's more like, it's good for like tonal stuff, or is it responsive to like percussive stuff too?
I've been mostly using it on masters, so
Okay.
I would say more tonal dynamic stuff. I haven't really messed around too much with it in like the mix phase.
That's cool. That makes me think about there's another module in Ozone 10 called Impact.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've messed with that, but
Yeah, that's in 11 as well.
okay, cool. Yeah, it's like they call it like a microdynamics module, and it really got me thinking about like songs, like the microdynamics of songs. And basically what that is like really short time scale dynamics. Like I find that I tend to make a lot of music that's like a wall of sound, and particularly doing like the master reverb test, it becomes really apparent that like there isn't really that much detail when it comes to like percussiveness in high end frequencies. And this impact module, it's like you could split the spectrum into 4 bands. You could boost and cut, and when you boost, basically what it does is it's like an envelope. It's kind of like a transient designer, or like
Yeah, it turns
it's like a transient enhancer.
In that range, it just either turns it up or down by a certain amount by a musical value or a millisecond value that you decide, right?
Yeah, and like if it's very responsive to like percussive stuff. So like a snare, you'll be able to like boost the top end of the snare just on the first, I don't know, 100 milliseconds or so, or whatever you set the envelope time to, and it can really make something sound a lot more like open and lively and wide. And that got me thinking about how I've been just mixing shit. I find that a lot of times if you're to make a song sound like really loud but also really dynamic, something that's like a really easy fix to like a very squashed, noisy mix is like use a high shelf and lower like everything above 10K or like 8K by a few dB, and then just boost your hi-hats. Like boost that top end of your hi-hats to bring that back, and it creates top end microdynamics that makes your mix sound a lot fuller and less fatiguing. And this module kind of does that.
I've been doing a similar thing with my masters actually on this new album, which is I will EQ the sides, but I'll remove all of the high frequencies in the sides above like maybe 5 or 6K.
Whoa.
Like I'll just get rid of them all. So it's like the sides are just like warm, and then you can actually make it wider as well without it getting like harsh and sounding all smeared and stuff like that, which is like this weird counterintuitive thing that I never really like tried it before because it didn't make any sense. Like, oh, what if I was always like boosting the sides, like boosting the highs in the side channels because I wanted like really bright, wide sort of mixes, but I've been doing the opposite lately, and I really like the sound of it actually.
Shit. I gotta try that because I've been doing the same thing. Like,
well, it's kind of the same theory. It's like it makes all of your high frequencies, like your hi-hats and stuff that isn't spread, just mono and clean and like very defined. Doesn't have all this like smeary shit around it.
Fuck yeah, I'm trying to try that. Cool. Thanks for that. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, no worries.
I haven't
What
thought about
what like metrics were you trying to hit on the new album in terms of like lofts and amount of sub level and stuff like that?
So, I think I was trying to hit -6 or -5. I'm not sure.
I feel like -6 is like pretty reasonable. I feel like when you start to get to -5, stuff starts to fall apart a bit, and -4 and above is just like, I have a few tracks on my album that are -4, and they're like barely staying together. It's like they're on the brink of complete distortion, basically.
Damn. Yeah, there are some artists that where it's like that's surprisingly clear and loud. And I'm always like, what the fuck are they doing? I think it's the samples and sound and like the type of sound design that they use, like I was saying. But like, I find that the way that I compose and the types of sounds and shit that I use, like I feel the same way. Like anything above 5, it doesn't really work really well. But here, let me just double check. I don't even remember what the LUFS value was. Let me just check with the loudness meter on one of the drops. I think it was 5, but
Yeah, for mine, I've been trying to aim for a sub level of -3 dB in the drops and about -6 or below in the breakdowns. And then LUFS wise, yeah, anywhere between -7 and -4. But tending to be more in the middle of that more of the time, like -6 or something.
Yeah, so it looks like, my song Bridges, the short-term LUFS on the drop is basically -5. And my sub level is hitting, it's hitting like -7. It's a little light on that. But how I was like, I used Spectrum to level my subs, actually because of one of your tutorials like years ago, like how to precisely level sub.
Yeah, where you just
That's
like
been a
use
game
the
changer.
range control.
Yeah, that's been a game changer to match my kicks with my bass sub.
So my kicks actually, I have lower usually. I have those at like -7 or -6, but I have the sub at like -3.
Oh shit, okay.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know why. I just always feel like it sits better that way. And if I make the kicks and the sub the same, I feel like I always feel like there's not enough sub. And then if I raise the kick to be the level of the sub, I always feel like the kick distorts.
Yeah, my remedy for that is,
Just use a click for the kick, basically.
I've been doing I've been trying out a lot of new things. There really isn't like one solid method that I use. But what I've been doing for a few songs on this album is routing my kick and snare. So like I'll process my kick and snare to where they're just like clipping to 0 and they sound really good. Like they don't sound distorted. What I'll do is I'll mute them in the drum rack, and then I will use a compressor or something that has a sidechain listen function, and I'll route the sidechain to the kick and the snare on the master after any of the processing, any like Ozone or whatever. So it's basically like I'll take the kick and the snare and route it to after the master processing of everything else. You could also just do it by using like, groups, all of your instruments except the kick and snare get processed, and then at the end the kick and snare is like basically just inserted on top.
That's actually a trick that Noisier did or they maybe still do, but it's basically what they would do is they would master their track, get it like all smashed and sounding nice and loud, and then they would put the wave file back into Cubase, and then they would replace all of the transients on all of the drums by hand on the final mastered wave with clean transients, which is essentially the same thing as what you're doing, but you're just doing it in a easier way.
Yeah,
I did try this. After I heard that, I tried it on one of the new tracks on one of my on one of the new album tracks, and it definitely sounded better, but there's no fucking way I'm going to do that for every track. It's like way too much work. So I think actually I might try what you mentioned. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, I'm also using Duck Buddy for sidechaining, which is nice because it has the the look ahead function. And if you have like a little bit of like a couple milliseconds of silence before your transient, that ensures that any like low frequency tails or like DC offset isn't going to interfere with your transient and like, you know, reduce its headroom. Because I find that happens a lot, where like you'll have like a bass tail or the sidechain doesn't come in fast enough and the transient of your drum gets like pushed up or down and then clipped, and it's like, why does that sound so weak? It's because it just doesn't have that gap right before the transient.
Yeah, so that stuff I do actually do by hand. I like stem my stuff when I'm ready to mix it and put it in a new session. And I go through my entire stems and like right before every drum, put a little fade on everything else.
Manually?
Yeah.
Damn.
Which is a pain in the ass, but like, yeah, it works. I should look into Duck Buddy, to be honest.
So an alternative, I actually was taking a walk yesterday and I thought of this. I was like, what would an alternative be for someone who doesn't use Duck Buddy or like already has everything mixed and doesn't want to like replace their shit or use a different DAW, because Duck Buddy is Max for Live. What you can do is use a really fast gate or compressor as a sidechain, like basically as like your sidechain compressor. Just route it like you normally would to like a ghost kick or like click or something, but use latency delay. There's this free plugin called M-Utility by Melda Production, and it has a delay module in there. And what you can do, so basically what you do is before your sidechain compressor, you put M-Utility, add like, I don't know, 3 milliseconds of delay before you compress, and then afterwards add another M-Utility, and there's a button in the delay module that's called report as latency, and it's like negative delay. So basically it will reshift the track back in time the same amount of milliseconds that you delayed it, and it will give you that little fade before the sidechain compressor activates.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to do it. And another way to do it is just put everything that's not your drums inside one group and put just a delay on it with zero feedback and 100% dry wet and just add a few milliseconds, right?
That's, yeah, basically that. It's like the same thing, just a different way to go about it.
Yeah, your way definitely seems smarter, and yeah. I feel like by the sounds of it, the way that you set stuff up sounds like it would make a really good template for mixing, because it sounds like you've got everything kind of automated to happen, to do all of the things that one should do to make like a quote unquote like perfectly produced track or whatever. Do you use a template, or do you just kind of do this every time?
I do have a template, but I find myself like not really liking it. Like every time I'm like, yeah, this is going to be like the new standard for this year of how I'm going to make shit, I end up like not liking it, and then changing shit anyway. But my template is basically a 4 groups. I have drums, and inside that I have like drum rack and like tops group, which already has like a gentle sidechain compressor to the kick and the snare drum rack. And then I have effects, which is just not being processed. And then I have synths and basses. And the synths and basses are getting sent to a sidechain send. And then on that, I have a Duck Buddy that has a nice curve that I like to use for sidechaining. And my kick drum, my kick and snare, I have a sidechain trigger in the drum rack for my kick and snare. At the bottom, below the kick and snare, there's just like another cell that's like basically just a sidechain trigger. And I have both a muted audio click in case I want to use a compressor somewhere and manually do that. But then the other thing is an external instrument to send MIDI out to, whatever. The Duck Buddy can take MIDI, but I'll send it to it anyway.
Yeah, I've been just doing audio for sidechaining using Kickstart for a while now, which honestly I think sounds pretty good.
Does that use audio trigger? Like, can that take audio as a trigger?
It can actually do both, but yeah, I usually just use audio. And
nice.
It seems fine. I haven't really noticed any issues with it.
I haven't used that.
Yeah, it's a ShaperBox plugin. It's literally like $10. and
Can it do?
works really well.
Does it do multiband too?
It can do one multiband. So basically, it has a band button, and then one slider, and the slider defines like it's just compressing everything, sidechain compressing everything below the point which you set. So if you set it to like 500 hertz, then it's just doing everything below 500 hertz. It doesn't have like multi-band in the sense that like it has 3 bands or whatever, and each different one has its own
special curve. Yeah, okay, that's cool. That seems super useful and simple too. Like that's basically all you really need, I feel like.
Yeah, that's why I like it. It's simple. It's like very lightweight, and it's easy to set up. It doesn't. You can't even draw curves in it. It literally just gives you like 10 curves to choose from. And I kind of like that as well, like less option paralysis with it. I just pick one and just it's done.
Can you choose the time though, like the length of the curve?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I feel like that's all you really need.
Yeah, totally. It's like the 10 shapes that you would ever use, basically. And honestly, out of all of them, I probably only ever use like 3 of them, and seems to do the job. So wait, other than Duck Buddy, what else are you using for mixing and mastering? Like, what are you using for a multiband compressor, and what are you using for like a limiter and stuff?
So for mixing and sound design, my go-to like multiband compressor is really just a preset. It's really just a macro rack that I made for Ableton's multiband dynamics, and it's kind of like OTT but like linear. So I have a threshold control that controls all 3 bands, up and down, like the upward part and the downward part. Dial shit in really quickly. But for mastering though, I like to use, I pretty much only use Ozone. I like the sound of the crossovers. It's like low latency, but it's like linear phase, and I like the visual. I like how there's like a limiter and a compressor threshold separately. Trying to think what else I use. Something recently that I've been using is Spectral Compressor, which is it's a free open source plugin. It's like hard to find, but it's called Spectral Compressor. It's only VST3. It's for both Mac and Windows, but it's basically like
it's like Spectral Dynamics kind of.
It is. It's like Spectral Dynamics, although I find it a lot easier to use, and you can do things like set the attack and release times to 0. So you can do clipping.
Robert VDH, is it this guy?
Let me see.
There's this thing I just found on GitHub, and it's called Spectral Compressor by a guy. Yeah, and he's like, ever wondered what a 16,384 band OTT would sound like?
Yeah. So you could do that. Extreme bands. It does upward and downward compression, and you can also set the band count down to like I think 32. So you can do some really like cool textual shit. I love it. That's something that I use to control the low end. Like recently, that's something that I've been using to like compress the low end really precisely. And it's really neat because you also have like a spectral tilt and a spectral curve module inside of it.
How does it compare to Spectral Dynamics?
It's like much more user friendly. There's less parameters. And Spectral Dynamics can do other things though, like you can have like a custom curve. It can do like spectral gating. That's something that Spectral Compressor can't do unless you use like a parallel chain with an inverted, basically create like a delta rack for it. Spectral Dynamics can't do upward compression though. It can only do expansion and downward compression. But it also has like that naturalize and smoothing, which Spectral Compressor doesn't do. I don't know. They're just different. They're just different. I think Spectral Dynamics is like better for. It's more versatile. But Spectral Compressor is just like it's just funner to use, and you can get like faster results with it, I'd say, and it's free, so I can't complain.
True. Do you worry about linear phase stuff much during any other process other than on your master channel? Like, what are some instances where you actually care about linear phase?
If I'm EQing, well, actually, even that, not really. I was gonna say, if I'm EQing a kick drum, linear phase is best, because sometimes what I'll do is use an oscilloscope, an envelope triggered oscilloscope, to like sculpt my drum waveform like really precisely. And if you're using a linear phase EQ, you can do like pretty narrow cuts and boosts, like bell cuts and boosts, without creating phase shift. And so what that looks like on the oscilloscope, on the waveform view, is basically just like different parts of the kick get like boosted and boosted or reduced, as opposed to if you were using a minimal phase EQ, or analog phase EQ, the parts that you're boosting or cutting, it will like basically change the shape of the waveform horizontally. If you're doing any kind of like low cut with a analog phase EQ, you're going to get phase, like especially with the low frequencies, like if you do like a high pass filter at like 30 hertz, it's going to extend the tail of the kick drum pretty substantially because of like the phase shift that it introduces. And even though you're maybe trying to reduce low end to increase the headroom or something,
yeah, you end up adding more.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I find that a lot with non-linear phase stuff. It's like I'll put a like EQ8 on something, and I'll take out an amount of some frequency, and then it starts clipping. It's like, what's going on?
It seems, I know it seems counterintuitive, but phase, yeah, man, phase is a very real thing. It's tricky because a lot of times, like for like a long time, I did not consider like phase, like particularly like frequency based, like frequency specific phase stuff. I was like, why is shit just getting muddy when I'm trying to clean it up? But it's because of, why is shit clipping when I'm cutting frequencies out? But yeah, it's because of phase rotation. So
yeah, specifically I've found the place that I care about it the most is when doing it after a clipper. When using anything with splits after a clipper, like if it's a multi-band compressor or if it's an EQ or whatever it is, I find if you clip something to where like all of the dynamics are sitting exactly where you want, and then you put anything after it that's not linear phase and it has splits in it, it just like basically puts you back to square one. And you like might as well have not have clipped it in the first place. It like adds all this like volume and like peaks and dips and shit where it shouldn't be, which is like not something you can really hear, but it's something you can see, I feel like, on a graph.
Yeah, you could see it, and I think you can hear it if you're processing afterwards.
Right.
Like if you're trying to clip it again, you'll be able to hear that there's, it's different. Which in some cases, like for sound design, can be really cool. Something that I like to do is like if I'm making like respaces where I'm using like a detuned saw wave or sine wave and adding noise and then clipping that and then using like an EQ to like basically using a bunch of saturators in series. If I introduce like a little bit of phase shift with like just adding like an EQ3, for instance, which is just like a 3-band split that you can change the volume of each band. Just the crossovers of EQ3, putting it before like a bunch of saturators can drastically change the sound of it. And it's basically the same as like disperser. I mean, disperser is just an extreme version of that. You're just introducing like a ton of phase shift around a certain frequency range. And when you clip that afterwards, it changes the shape of the waveform and the sound of it drastically.
Something I've been doing a lot in my mixes lately is using ShaperBox to add I don't even know what you would call it. I guess it's like additive mixing in a way. So for instance, if you have like a bass that's like whomp, then I would put ShaperBox with a volume curve that just gets a certain part of that whomp, like whether it's the tail, so you get like the at the end, or if you get the at the start, like the bit, and then I'll put it in a rack next to a dry version of the signal, and then EQ like just one of the ranges of that bass. So it's like you can take sort of like the tail of the whomp and just have like a very low mid version of it that's layered with a dry version of the original sound to get this like extra sort of low mid warmth into it or something. And I found honestly that has been a lot less destructive sounding and just a lot cleaner sounding than doing the equivalent with like an EQ automation or something.
Whoa. Dude, that's sick. I've never thought to try that. So you're saying like you have the dry, you're basically creating a layer on top of it that isolates a certain frequency range and then shaping that to
right,
like
yeah, exactly. And then exactly like so making like a certain range have more of a certain dynamic that you want.
Yeah.
And I found that it's actually like a super clean way of mixing, and I actually learned it from Culprit as well. We did a collab for the new album, and he was like he didn't like the mixes I was doing, so I sent him the stems and he did a mix, and it was way better than my mix obviously. And I was looking through the session and noticed he just does it on like everything. So
dude,
I was like,
wow,
it's a cool trick. So I started doing it as well, and I've been really enjoying it. It's like you have like a shitload of control, I feel like, doing stuff that way.
that is fucking cool. It's interesting. That's similar to something that I recently started doing. Oftentimes I find that like using automation to do EQ, like doing EQ automation, it's like actually drawing an automation curve. Isn't that, even though it's like super precise, I find that it's not that creatively stimulating. Like sometimes it can break the flow because I'm just like, well, there's just too much going on. I'm mousing around too much. Something that I've been trying is using Serum effects as a way to kind of introduce like EQ movement. Basically just like use one of the LFOs, modulate like an EQ boost with the LFO. Put that on an already existing sound that kind of has some movement in it, and then just move the LFO points around until it like accentuates the right part of the frequency spectrum that sounds.
Yeah, so that's literally the same thing, but just with Serum effects. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like with the ShaperBox method, because you're doing volume instead, like that's it's a more phase stable version of that, because you're not, with an EQ when you're boosting and cutting something, it's dynamically changing the phase response of the sound versus like just adding a layer of that on top of it. I mean, I don't know, I feel like it's probably cleaner that way overall.
Yeah, and you can sort of go the other way with it too on the dry signal if you want. You can do like the inverse shape, and that way it's like you get one that's like boosting whilst the other one's cutting and stuff. And
yeah,
it's basically like you're building your own multi-band dynamic EQ but with no splits, kind of.
Yeah.
So the way that he was doing the splits actually was with Pro MB on linear phase mode, and then he would just like create a band and then solo that band on one, and then duplicate the Pro MB to the other one and mute the band on the other one.
Oh shit, okay.
And then that way it's like in some instances it was a layer, and then in some instances it was replacing that frequency range with a different movement basically.
Yeah. But if it's in linear phase either way, there's not going to be any like phase cancellation happening. It's like that's the cleanest way to do it.
Right, exactly.
It's
but
sick.
I guess the downside is that to do that have to have two devices that are running linear phase versus maybe
That's
just
true.
one if you're doing it with a single EQ.
That's true. What we could do is just use one linear phase device and then create a phase, like you'd create like a phase cancellation rack. So it just cancels out the part that's soloed, and then you don't have to use a second device.
Over engineer it just to squeeze like every little bit of juice out of your processor.
Yeah, exactly. Also, my bladder is extremely full. Give me
Oh,
1
yeah.
minute.
No worries.
I'll be
Go
right
for
back.
it. Yep.
All right.
Yo. So actually, I might get back to this mastering session that I've been at for the last 3 months and also maybe get some food. But it was awesome chatting with you for a bit. I appreciate you coming on again. And I feel like this whole podcast was just me asking you, how do I mix my album better? But I think hopefully people will find it interesting.
Dude, yeah, anytime. My pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah, likewise.
Yeah, feel free to hit me up whenever about if you need a second opinion on.
Yeah, do you
being
mind if I
something.
send you some masters and have a listen to them and maybe let me know if they're good?
Dude, yeah, please do. By all means.
All right, cool. I'll send some after we jump off this call.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Sick. All right, man. Well, yeah, thanks again. And yeah, have a good night.
Yeah, you too, Bill. Take it easy. Peace.